G'day team, welcome to another day in the trenches of me walking you through the seemingly never-ending user interface in Revit. Today we're going to be going through the View ribbon, or toolbar, tab, whatever you want to call these. I've been saying ribbon, but I don't think there's any official naming. View is important to get your head around. I say that with everything. To be honest, everything is important to get your head around. Everything that I talk about, I believe, is pretty fundamental. So, let's get stuck in. So first up, we have view templates. So view templates, put as simply as possible. If we're going to manage view templates here, all right, so we'll have a look at the architectural plan. All of these visibility/graphic parameters down the side here can all be lumped, and their specific settings can be lumped into what is called a view template, and that view template can be applied to any view. So say you really like your architectural plan, that's how you want your floor plans all set up, and then you're going to go and make a new plan, but it doesn't have a template already set up. So say for example, if we go to override graphics in view by category, we really love it when the cut pattern of walls is, let's say, this color. All right, say that that's our office standard. So then if we apply the view template that we've just made to this other view, apply OK, you'll see down here it says view template is example. So if we then wanted to start hiding things, see how category has been blocked out there. A view template essentially overrides the category graphic overrides in the view. And if you want to undo that but keep the changes that you've made, so keep all of your walls red, you go from example just to none and then apply and then OK. And then it'll stay the same, but then you have freedom to change and modify whatever you want about this specific view, and it won't change the other one. If you did want to change any of the view templates themselves and have it update everywhere else, you can go up to here, go to example. So it was a model visibility graphic override that we applied because it was applied to the wall, and we'll go edit. So we can see there that wall, the cut pattern is pink. So then if we wanted to change that to blue, because we changed our minds, go apply, OK. So you'll notice here it hasn't changed, but that's because the view template is set to none. If we change that to example again, it's going to update there as well. And everywhere else that view template is active. But as soon as you go back to none, these graphics are going to stay, but it's not going to receive any future updates that view template has. So that was a bit of a long-winded explanation, but it's an important thing to know. Visibility graphics is kind of what the view templates run on. So these are the things that the view template will lock in and create the template from. So you can see here that in this view, the visibility graphics are overridden to display as this, and this view can be saved as a template and applied to other things, but all of these individual things can be overridden from here or individually in, if we selected Windows, go override graphics by category, the category is where it's going to show up in the visibility graphics for the view. Whereas if you just go by element, it's not going to show up there. So if we were to say override graphics by element, see the cut pattern there's graphics override. So let's say it's shingle. So the category of walls has an override, which means that it's been applied to all of them, but this specific element has an override on itself. So it's just a bit different there. So element is the specific wall, category is all the walls, and without spending quite literally the rest of my life going through all of these things, you can change any of these overrides in here or if it's a template, you can do it through here. They're very much the same thing. Additionally, you have model categories, annotation categories, and imported categories. So if you have any DWGs loaded into the job, you can override the graphics through here. Same deal with annotation categories, and obviously model categories is all of the 3D model things that we can see in here. All right, thin lines is pretty simple. Thin lines is, see this wall has two thick lines either side. If we turn thin lines on, there is no thick lines. So this is how it's actually going to print. Whereas if you're working with kind of the finer details, trying to work out what's going on in this little junction here, you'd turn on thin lines so you can see, oh, okay, well that runs into there and then this runs into the face of that. But with thin lines off, you can't work it out. But this is how it's going to print. It doesn't matter if thin lines is on or off when you print. It's going to print like this every time. So show hidden lines is a bit of an interesting tool. So where's a good view? This is probably a good view. All right. So if we go show hidden lines and we click on the element that is obstructing the view of something behind it, and then the thing that's being obstructed, it will override it. Let's turn. Don't think thin lines makes a difference here. Yeah, can you see how there's a dashed line down there which indicates where that post goes? And I think it might be a good idea to do it so click on the wall and then see how we've got the that blue line go down the side there, says the wall. So same deal here. And it just essentially just overrides it so that if you're cutting, you're cutting through the ground. I'm trying to find a better view here. Okay, this is probably better. Yes, that's much better. Okay, so showing that it's cutting through the ground there, and as the dashed line indicates that it's actually going into the ground. And you can do the same thing. So show hidden lines, remove hidden lines. Same deal. Cool little tool. So cut profile. Cut profile is a little bit interesting. If we go to our section, I hardly ever use this because it feels a bit shady. So go building section. Okay. So if we go cut profile and we select this footing, essentially what you can do is you can modify how the footing looks specifically in this view when it's being cut. So you can draw some wild stuff out here. Let's see if it's actually going to work. It might be like a bit of a void for this time, but we'll go okay. All right, nothing's happened there. That means I need to tick that little arrow here, and then it's going to look like the footing's got some, a shoe. That can be done to footings. It can also be done to roofs. So say we wanted to like throw a unicorn horn on this roof. Go to cut profile. There, little tick, go okay. Oh, wrong way around. Of course it was. Okay, so this is only going to show up like this in this view. So if we go to our 3D, you can see that there is in fact no unicorn horns on that roof. But for all intents and purposes in this view, there is. Do with that what you will. I don't do any rendering in Revit itself. So these buttons are useless to me, and to be fair, rendering in Revit is really not that great, so neither should you. Okay, 3D view. So if we go here, default 3D view, that's pretty self-explanatory. This button is exactly the same as this button. The drop-down menu is the same as well. But if we go to camera, this is how we set up a 3D view. So it's 2 clicks. First click is going to be where you're standing. Second click is going to be where you're looking. You can establish the height offset based on whatever level you've got selected. So say we want to be about 1750 off above the first floor level. Go click, and there we go. Nice little 3D view. And as mentioned earlier, you can apply a view template if you've got some graphic options already set up in a view template to save you having to kind of override and hide certain, hide the trees or whatever. And the walkthrough tool I don't use. It's not that great. All right, so let's go to first floor. So section is pretty self-explanatory. 2 clicks of the section and it's going to show up under section, or you can right click on the head of the section and go to view, which will take you to the section that you've just cut, or you can flip the section, but that's also what this little button at the side here does. So these little triangles, these are kind of the extents of the view. So if you want to change the depth, so it's only, you know, it won't pick up that back door anymore because it's only going through here. And additionally, this little arrow that shows up at the end here is just cycling the different options of, I guess you call them like section tails or level heads. It's the same deal for, same function for these views. So they all work very much the same. So a callout view is just going to create a smaller, more detailed view of whatever we want to highlight here. So if we do one in here, you'll see it's shown up under sections and it's called building section callout 1. We can either go to it, or if we modify the profile through here, or we can get into the view itself in here. And you'll notice that the artistic license with the profile has disappeared in the detailed view because it doesn't actually exist in the model, only in that specific view. All right, so elevation, by default, this is going to show up as a building elevation, which would be just the same as one of these elevations we've got off to the side here. Another common type of elevation that we'll be putting together will be an interior elevation. So if we wanted to put some elevations for all of the joinetry, cabinetry, and appliances in the kitchen itself, that would be done through another type of elevation called an interior elevation, which functions the same, but just a little bit more complicated because it's on a much smaller scale. So a drafting view is like a 2D view, which has just essentially a bunch of information. Like all of this stuff is just detail components, filled regions. None of this is actually in the model. It's all just like AutoCAD style filled regions, hatches, text note, etc. This is for, as you can guess, doing actual very specific little construction details like this one. And anything I do in here will not affect the main model itself. There's drafting views and legends are quite similar. The biggest difference, which is not quite so obvious, is that drafting views can only go on one sheet each. So if we go to this sheet and we'll try and drag a drafting view on, I think that one's already there, so that one's at grade. So we know that at grade is on this sheet. So if we try and put at grade on the elevation, it's going to say, oh, it's already placed on this sheet, so you can't place it on there. So if you're putting something that you need to display on multiple sheets in a detail or a drafting view, not quite going to work. But if you put it in a legend, it's going to work, no worries. Okay, so plan view is pretty much just if you're going to make a new plan. So it could be a floor plan, a ceiling plan, which is like a floor plan except you're looking up, a plan region, and an area plan. So an area plan is exactly the same button as the one in the architecture tab here, and it's the area plan. A cool one that is very, very handy is plan region. So say you've got a window which has a head height which is different to the view cut level of this specific view. You can put a little region in here. So it's essentially just making like a little viewport within the view, and then that view range can then be edited so that let's say it's like 50, so it's not going to cut through the window at all. So you can see that now it's not cutting through the window when before it was. It's just cutting through the wall itself. If we were to delete that, the window will then show up again. So duplicate view. We have a few options when it comes to duplicating a view. So earlier I did a duplicate view, but it was just a standard duplicate with no detailing. So duplicate like this, we'll just duplicate it and not have any of the text notes. If we wanted to copy and have all of the detail components and everything else as much as possible, so pretty much duplicate it as it is, you'd go duplicate with detailing. So that looks very, very much like this one, but not quite the same as this. I'm actually going to delete this because it's just getting confusing now. So if we were to include a sample text note in here, you'd see that it is not in this view. Whereas if we were to duplicate this first floor view as a dependent, not only is the text note that we copied in here, but if we were to delete it from, sorry, I keep going. If we were to delete it from here, it's also going to be deleted in this view as well. So any text or changes that we make to this view are also going to be reflected in this view, and additionally it's nested underneath that first view as well. So very handy for certain applications, but sometimes can be more painful than good. So legends, like mentioned with the drafting views, legends can be placed on multiple sheets. If we were to create a quick legend, we'll just call it example. You can do any kind of text notes, detail components, any 2D elements in here. But we can also, in legends, if we go over to the annotate tab, go legend component, and then just place this little X wherever it needs to go, we can then load in any kind of family. So let's say this basic window, for example. So the view of it is in the floor plan. So we can change that to front elevation, and this is where legends can be used to, create a graphic representation if you wanted to see this in a window schedule or whatever, and then that can then be placed on as many sheets as you want, and it's going to be showing up under, so legends here. We can place that there, just get rid of the yeah, like mentioned earlier, can be placed on any number of sheets for any purpose you can really imagine. Schedules are absolute powerhouses in Revit. They are very, very complicated, but they are extremely, extremely useful. I could make a series of videos about how schedules work and how I use them to the best of my abilities, but for now, I will just keep that as a very, very brief overview and save it as a bookmark for future videos, because yeah, schedules is where we're really, really getting into the weeds. Scopebox is it's a bit of an advanced tool. If the purpose of these videos are for people who are just dipping their toes in Revit, so you really don't need to know about scope boxes until you've really got your head around like grids and datums and levels and all of that kind of stuff. So we'll bookmark that one as well. Sheet is if you're going to create a new sheet. So down in the project browser here, you can see all of our sheets listed. You can create a new sheet by clicking this button, or you can create a new sheet by right-clicking there and going new sheet. And then it'll ask you to choose a title block, etc. Same deal from there. So if we are in a sheet and we want to place a view on this sheet, we can click on the view, and then it's going to ask us to select which view we want to add. Honestly, I have never ever done that before. I will always just click and drag straight from the project browser onto the sheet. I don't think this button needs to exist. Title block is quite simply for loading title blocks onto the sheet. So I think there's only one or two there, but essentially this is a title block. Title blocks, once again, will get a full video in the future, because they're extremely important, but definitely not something I can cover in as little time as I've got for each button on in this ribbon. Revision schedules, again, comes under title blocks. So if you're working on a job and it's revision C, you need to be able to accurately record that information, have that displayed on each of the sheets, and you do that through revisions, and they tie into a schedule which is placed into the title block. So once again, sorry for all of the future video promises, but we will revisit that. Guide grid is something that you can apply over the top of a sheet, and it's going to help you with placing notes and views and whatever on each sheet. So you can click and drag the extents. You can modify the size of the grid itself. So say we want it to make it 100 mil squares, and it's going to up the size of them. So yeah, pretty useful for if you're trying to make these sheets as neat as possible, but good little tool to understand. So Matchline is a pretty cool tool. Essentially creates a type of line which can live in the barren waste in between views after you've split a view. So if we select the crop region of a view here, and we click on these little squiggly lines up here, it's going to create a break in the view. Once this view has been split into two separate parts, you can move the extents in and out. You can also move the view itself by clicking on these little arrows here. So you need something which is going to actually indicate where the view is split. I mean, we can see because we've got these the crop regions, but the crop regions don't print. So a match line is something that can live in the space in between these views. So if we would go up here, go OK. So the difference between this and a normal detail line is a normal detail line is going to stop as soon as it goes over the edge of the view there, whereas this can just live out here, no worries at all. View reference is it's not a tool that I actually use all that often, but it just, like it says, adds an annotation indicating the sheet number and detail for a selected view. Viewports. This is an interesting button. A common criticism of Revit is that there's just too many ways to do any particular number of things. So if we were to go to this sheet here, if I wanted to activate this view, I can just double click on the view, right? And that's going to activate it, and then I can get in there and do whatever I want. If I want to deactivate that view, I can just right click anywhere, go deactivate view, and now I'm back into this sheet. Additionally, if I select it and then go activate view, it's going to do the same thing. And then if I click on it up here and then go deactivate view, it's going to do the same thing. Also, you can just double click in and double click out. So 3 ways to do an extremely easy, simple thing. And for some reason, Autodesk decided to just create a bunch of ways to do that. But hey, here we are. So switch windows. It's pretty much if you say we wanted to go to the typical or tip Eve view, rather than just click on it here, we can go all the way up here and then find it in here, which for some reason you need to go all the way in here, and then you can select it in here rather than just click up there. So for some reason, like just totally pointless. Close inactive views is going to close every single one of these views except for the one that is open. Tab view is, we're in tab view at the moment because they're all displayed as tabs, whereas if we went to tile view, it would display them all as individual little windows here. So if we went back to tab view and we went to close inactive and then we tried to go tile view, nothing's going to happen because there's no other active views to actually go to. So, and then the user interface, I think I've gently touched on this in a previous video, but say you accidentally close your properties and your project browser down. There's no need to panic just yet. So up in the view, obviously, user interface, project browser, and properties. And it just pretty much just controls whatever is visible in your user interface. Look, that's about it. That was a long video. There's a lot in there. Hopefully, I'm sure you would have got something out of that. If you're not super familiar with Revit and you've somehow displayed the patience to listen to all of that, then I applaud you, and thank you very much for listening. And I will, talk to you all soon. Thanks again.